Type Podcast.
Here we go. Hello. This is the Just My Type podcast where we discuss, debate, and deliberate all things diabetes. My name is Dobie Maxwell, representing Type 2, representing Type 1, the vivacious, effervescent, and always in the know, Sami Parker. We'll be getting to Sami in just a second, but first, today's Just My Type podcast episode is sponsored by the Diabetes app, a free social community app that brings together both Type 1 and Type 2 diabetics, plus their supporters. Hopefully you listening are one of those three. Find community resources and Sami and I on the Diabetes app. Hey, partner Sami.
Heyo, what's up?
Let's get your measurements there. We're going to pull the D card on you right up front. What's your number, your sugar number today?
Oh, we are doing amazing. I'm 116 with a arrow going sideways.
Life is good.
That does not happen all the time, I can assure you.
So have a nice
that.
big Hostess Twinkie after the podcast and
how'd you know?
Get that up there.
My favorite.
We have a wonderful show for you today as we're laying the foundation of a long-term fun project. And we have our first guest today, Sami. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to back off because you are an intelligent young lady. Our guest is an intelligent young lady. And any smart man knows when two intelligent ladies speak to shut up, listen, and learn. I have 2 ears and 1 mouth. Take it, Sami.
All right. So our first guest, which we are so excited to announce, is Miss Jessyka. Well, not Miss, but Mrs. Jess is a type 1 diabetic. She lives in Rancho Cucamonga, which is a little like Southern California.
Wait. Rancho Cucamonga sounds like a salad dressing.
Oh, well, thank you, Dobie, but it is not.
It's a real town. So just if you're listening around the world, people, that's a real city. We looked it up.
Yes. And Jess is a mom, but we'd like to hear from Jess. So Jess, how's it going?
Hi, I'm very excited to be here. Thank you for having me. Hopefully I don't get too nervous and start rambling.
No, it's okay. I do that all the time. So it's fine.
Twitch, and I just start talking. My husband's like, shut up.
Oh, sounds like we're pretty similar.
Me and Sami have already decided we are long lost twins.
Yeah. And then when she told me that she lived in Southern California, I was like, yes, we are long lost twins while Dobie is over in Antarctica.
Where are you at, Dobie?
I'm shutting my mouth.
No, Dobie, you got to tell us, where do you live?
I live in Bristol, Wisconsin. It's between Milwaukee and Chicago.
So chilly. Because it's like 68 here in California right now. Well, maybe 65, but that's freezing.
It's 68 in California right now. I hope you get a hurricane and an earthquake, but I mean that with a friendly and a customer service kind of way.
Yeah.
Hey, there's a slight wind here, and I'm telling you, the wind gets a little...
I got caught in a hailstorm, 2 days ago now? So,
oh, me too!
So that's pretty traumatic for us Californians, I have to admit.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Dobie. We're not as cultured as you are.
It's all good. Hey, Jess, let's hear your story. Sami and I shared our diagnosis stories. Sami's was fascinating, and she said yours was great too. I'm just curious to hear what it is.
So I have actually had diabetes now for this year will be 6 years. I got diagnosed at 22. It was kind of a weird story. I broke out in a really weird rash, like on my chest and like going up into my hair. And I have my cosmetology license. So I was like terrified of like having to shave my head off or something. And I ended up doctors for that. And she's like, well, you really need some blood work done. You haven't gotten blood work done in like 2 years. And I'm like, okay, well, I hate needles. Like, I'm not doing it. She's like, go downstairs, just get it done. Like, okay. So I walked downstairs and I wasn't even out of the hospital like doors to go to my car to drive home. And she's like, you need to go to the ER. I'm like, for what? Like, how bad rash? That's what I was thinking. And she's like, your blood sugar's 780. And I'm like, oh, cool. That sounds like a good number, And 20 minutes later, I'm in the hospital, hooked up to IV drips, heart monitors, the whole nine. And I had a bunch of doctors coming in and saying, how you're not in a coma right now is really beyond me. And I'm like, I'm fine. Like, what's going on? What's the deal? And she's like, you're diabetic. And I'm like, no, not like I'm skinny, and I was that naive and that thought diabetes was just overweight and older people because, my grandma had it at the time. And I was 100% believing that I'm not overweight. I'm not old.
Mm-hmm.
I was 22 at the time. There's no that this could happen to me. And sure enough, I walked out of the hospital with like 2 huge duffel bags of diabetes supplies. And that was it. The rest is history.
I think it's kind of crazy, especially with, I don't know how it is really for like being diagnosed as an adult because I was so young. But for me, like I went through the whole, 6-hour shebang where they break down everything. But I've heard from everybody that's been diagnosed that's 20 and older that they don't do that. They just like give you, here's your medications, you need to take insulin, and that's what you do.
Yeah, and that's pretty much what they did with me. They just sent me home with a bunch of stuff. I mean, and I'm terrified of needles, hate needles. And
Same.
they were like, here's needles, here's alcohol swabs, here's insulin. And I'm like, okay, so you take this whole vial of insulin. Like, that's really what I thought at the time, you know? And I called the next day and I was in and out of the hospital for like probably a month just because trying to get,
Oh my gosh.
everything figured out. And I was hooked up to an IV drip for about a week.
Wow.
It was it's pretty traumatic. Yeah. Just trying to lower my blood sugar.
Hey, Jess, is anyone else in your family diabetic?
No, I am actually the only one. Of course, my grandma had it, but that was only type 2.
Mhm.
But I'm the only one that has it. So it was definitely a shock for us all. My dad's terrified of needles too. He passes out every time he sees a needle.
Yes.
I'm going to help you every day. We got this. And I remember giving myself a shot one time, like 2 days after I got diagnosed. And he was like, I can't be in the room. I'm going to pass out, Jessica. I don't know how I'm going to do this. Thanks, Dad.
Yeah. No, I feel that because to a very minute, but my dad is like, he sees like the big needles. Like, for example, this is probably TMI, so sorry, Dad. But when my mom was getting her epidural, he passed out with my sister, like in the room. And my mom was over there like, you're passing out. I'm the one getting it. So when I got it, I think at first, and the syringes look a lot bigger before you get like the flex pen or something. So I remember he was pretty good, but I remember thinking, oh gosh, is he gonna like pass out when I do this?
Yeah.
So yeah, I relate to that one.
Yeah, I was just sitting there with like grabbing my stomach with a needle like for 30 minutes, and he's like, I can't do this. I don't know how you're going to do this your whole life. And now it's so funny how it comes full circle, and I just stab myself like, no big deal,
Yeah. Well, it's so like I got diagnosed when I was a teenager, and then Dobie was older. So how was it dealing with it like in your prime 20s? Just like going through life and having to adjust your normal routine and all of that.
It was not easy, especially because I'm the only one in my immediate friend group that has it. So I have to be honest, for the first probably 2 months, I definitely did not take care of it. I never took my needles anywhere, never took my insulin anywhere, my meters, nothing, just because I was embarrassed. I didn't want to have to inject before meals or after meals. And if I did take any of my supplies, I would go to the bathroom and do it there so no one would see me, which is not sanitary in the least bit. I just didn't want to know, I was like, I'll do this in the restroom.
Yeah.
But now it's become such a second nature to me that everyone knows. Everyone's like, are you okay? Are you low? You don't look too good. Are you all right? Here's some sugar, So it's come full circle, which is really good.
Hey, Jess, what tips would you have if somebody's just getting diagnosed now and they might be in their 20s? Because like Sami was said, when she was a kid, it was hard enough, but her parents were around her. But were you married at the time?
No, I had a boyfriend at the time, but obviously that worked out.
Mm-hmm. But you found me. You got to kiss a frog to get to the prince. You married the right guy, right?
But we were all learning at the time, but it was mainly me, and I'm very like, this is my problem. I'll deal with it. No one else. But if I had to give advice, I would say 100% reach out to whoever you can. And that's a lot of the reason I made my Instagram was because, like I said, no one in my family, in my immediate group of friends. Example for you, Sami. I mean, look at how close we have gotten in the past couple weeks.
Yeah.
And I've done that with multiple people who live all over the world. And it's such a cool feeling, literally not alone in this, even though I feel alone sometimes in my family and immediate friends, if that makes sense.
Sami came up with a really cool thing called pulling the D card when, because people are ignorant. And I don't know if you listen to our past episodes. We invite people to listen to our past episodes. But have you ever done that, pull the D card when someone doesn't know and use it to your advantage?
Oh, God, all the time.
Yeah.
I'm not ashamed to say it, all the time, especially when we go out to restaurants. I've worked in restaurants pretty much my whole life. I've been bartender, the whole nine. And if my sugar's low and I'm hungry, I get hangry. Very bad.
Angry and hungry?
Oh, yeah. And I am angry. My husband's like, oh, my gosh, Jessica, you need food. So as soon as we sit down, especially if it's at a restaurant we've been to multiple times, I'm like, I want this, this, and this. And my husband, Derek, is like, Jessica, we just sat down. And I, of course, have to give the server the whole spiel. Hey, I'm diabetic. I'm really, really hungry. I need some food. Can we get this going? And she's like, oh, yeah, totally fine.
Oh, yeah.
I pull
Did you, this is probably in a different way, but did you ever pull through your pregnancy and even labor and having Walker? Did you pull the D card at all?
I pulled the pregnancy card, I pulled the diabetes card, and if you put those two together, you're unstoppable. Let me tell you. I remember working, I was at a bar, I was a bartender, and I remember we were so busy on a Friday night, and I was probably 20 weeks pregnant, which is going into your third trimester pretty much. And I was like, I'm done. I'm going home. And my boss is like, what? And I'm like, yeah, I'm tired. Like, my sugar's low. I gotta eat. I'm pregnant. My ankles are swollen. I'm going home. And he's like, okay, like, no problem. See you later.
Yeah, you're
It was
like
a Friday night. It was bad.
you're like tapping out. I am done.
He's like, sorry, I'm going home. He's like,
That makes sense.
Here's a quick question for Jess. Being a family person, a mom and a wife, what is the biggest challenge that you have? Because I'm sure people listening they're a mom and maybe I'm not in my 20s and I have more than one child and it's just really, really hard. Do you have any challenges and how do you overcome them?
you know, I would say the hardest, and I've done this, since Walker was born, was figuring out how to take care of myself, but as much take care of my son, because your whole life becomes taking care of him and whatever he needs or whatever they need. And I have to remember that at the end of the day, if I'm not okay, he's not okay. And the hardest thing ever is sugar gets low and he's just fallen asleep and you can't put him down yet, or he's screaming and you're dropping. And I have everything in the corner of my house. I have small candies, I have juice boxes, I have just about anything in my house. So
well, Jess, Sammy and I are going to come over to your house to visit, and we're going to be like Easter.
Yeah.
Oh, Sammy found a juice box. Oh, I found a candy bar.
Yeah.
Yay.
I will be making the trek down to Rancho Cucamonga.
Gosh, you know how many times I get made fun of for Rancho? It's hilarious. It's hilarious. People are like, where?
No, I'm gonna make the trek down there, and I'm gonna bring my own juice boxes and just hide them too.
That's fine.
Well, it's funny because our parent company is in Toronto, Canada, which is a great city. So I think our American outlet's going to be from now on in Rancho Cucamonga, and Sammy can come down. You guys can visit and get our fan mail.
Yes,
That's fine. I love it.
2 postcards and a bill.
Yeah.
yes. So, okay, you were afraid of needles, right? So, like, as far as for those of you who don't know, Jess has how would you describe it? Small company or like an artistic company?
It sounds so funny because I feel like I'm the smallest little small business you could ever see. I started it just because I have always wanted to help spread diabetes awareness. That's kind of like my calling right now. And when I started it, I can't even draw stick figures to save my life. So how I came up with these designs is beyond me. But I just wanted something that was cool for a diabetic eye, but also a quote unquote normal person eye. My husband is not diabetic, and I would want him to be like, oh, those are cool. I like those designs. But at the same time, us diabetics saw it. They would understand the insulin bottle. They would understand the insulin needle, those things. So I wanted to make it cool and for everybody, just so when I start to make t-shirts and jackets and all those kinds of things, that my husband, who's not diabetic, would be like, oh, this is cool. I'm going to wear this. But then, if we walked by and be like, hey, that's an insulin needle, or hey, that's an insulin bottle,
Yeah. And it's called Anti-Insulin Insulin Club, right?
Yes. It's like, hey, we have insulin, but we don't have insulin. So that's kind of the story behind it.
Yeah, no, that's super cool though.
How can our listeners get a hold of you? Is it diabetic_Jess at Instagram? That's what I have. I'll make sure that's right.
Yes. So I am Diabetic Jess on Instagram. And then I also just made my little small business Instagram, and that's the Anti-Insulin Insulin Club. So you can follow me on both.
Awesome. Okay, and then I have one more question for you. And I think this is probably one that I'm sure everybody has, and I'm sure you get bombarded all the time. But how was your basically pregnancy and Walker's birth? Because I know as a diabetic, that's like you already, well, actually, I don't know because obviously I don't have a child, but I'm assuming going into labor is very, very painful. So how was that with like managing blood sugars too and affecting Walker?
I totally gave birth, but I had the most traumatic birth story that I've ever heard. So I'll get into that. But pregnancy, I loved being pregnant. I really didn't have a hard time with managing blood sugars. If I could change anything, I would say I would definitely be on an insulin pump. I was just doing MDI, multiple daily injections. So I would definitely switch that. I would have had better control, but I still managed it pretty well. I was below 7 every time.
Oh, cool.
So it was pretty good. And then I actually gave birth to Walker at 31 weeks.
Wow.
So he was about 9.5 weeks early. And it was not diabetes related. It was just, my body didn't want him in there anymore. We were actually camping. We love to go camping. We have a fifth wheel. So we were out in Johnson Valley, which is like a total desert town. You take your motorcycles and your razors and all those kinds of things. So long story short, I went inside and I had to use the restroom and I just started gushing blood. And I was like, this is not good.
Yeah.
So I called my brother-in-law, who's a firefighter, and he's like, hey, you need to get to the hospital. Walker's going to come out. I'm like, no, this kid's still got 9 more weeks to cook,
Yeah.
There's no way. Got rushed to the hospital. And obviously I'm making a very long story short.
Yeah.
So by the time I got to the hospital at 7:20 and Walker was born at 7:32. So I was.
Oh my gosh.
Wow. We in the express lane?
Yeah. The ambulance had like an hour drive from where we were camping to the hospital.
Oh my God.
And after I came to, so I was an emergency C-section. They put me under, took him out. I really remember much after they put me out just because I was so loopy. But the doctor, after I came to, she's like, if you would have waited like 15 more minutes, like you both would have been not here.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So it turns out that my placenta was ripping from my body. So we were both just losing so much blood that he ended up coming out 9.5 weeks early. So he was in the NICU for 6 weeks. But now
Is the rumor true that they always say a diabetic's baby is the chunkiest?
He was actually the biggest one in the NICU, which now, thank you God, because all the other NICU babies that were in there were like 1 pound, 2 pounds, and Walker was like 4.5 pounds.
Gosh.
I'm like, thank you God.
No, you said 31 weeks before. I thought you were going to say 31 pounds because I had heard that too.
Yeah.
I'm thinking this is a super, like a baby gorilla.
Hey, so you had the whopping muscly baby in the NICU.
It's funny. You see pictures of him and he looks so small, but then I remember sitting in the NICU and all the other babies were so little and he was so chunky. And now he's well over 26 pounds. So he's exceeded his preemie stage.
If you guys haven't seen Jess's baby Walker, you need to go on her Instagram and look at Walker because I die. He's adorable. He's the cutest child ever.
Thank you. I have to take credit for that, but he looks just like his dad.
He's got a great story now to tell girls. I mean, girls like, oh, you survived that. Yep. Oh, he's a lucky.
He can be like, I was the mighty NICU baby. Wow. Well, that's a lot. Did that have any impact blood sugar wise? Or did they kind of just keep it level?
No, I was so high for probably 3 weeks after. Just, stress, lost so much blood and just completely overwhelmed with how everything happened and now trying to wrap my head around being a mom. I was hovering around 200 to 300 for 3 weeks.
And that does not feel good.
Yeah.
Dobie, I'm sure you can agree with me that is this.
Well, see, Jess has a record. I started out, what was your diagnosis, Sami? Your number? Mine was 500. Jess is way above. What was yours? You remember?
780. Okay, yeah, I was definitely the runner-up here. I was only at 530.
Okay, I'm in third place. So where, once again, can we get a hold of you?
You can follow me on Diabetic Jess on Instagram or Anti-Insulin Insulin Club on Instagram.
Thank you for being our first guest.
Yeah.
Sami and I were talking before the show, and we said your entire career depends on this one appearance. And you did good.
Thank you.
We don't want to make you nervous beforehand, so we said that to ourselves.
Yeah.
You aced it, kid. We appreciate you.
Yeah, thank you, Jess, for coming on.
I love it.
We got more show coming up. Stay tuned with us. We are the Just My Type podcast. She is Sami. I am Dobie. Our special guest, Diabetic Jess, coming right back. The Diabetes app is an online community platform that was created to help people living with diabetes find support and information in one spot.
And on the Diabetes app, you can join groups and connect with other people all over the world who are also living with diabetes. I mean, for me, whenever I have a bad day, I find myself scrolling through the mental wellness group just to reassure myself that I'm not alone.
The Diabetes app has a resource section where you can find articles, recipes, tips, and tricks for managing your diabetes. Download the Diabetes app today and connect with us right on the app.
DiaStrong is an online telehealth platform that connects you to medical and holistic professionals to help you manage your diabetes. Find registered dietitians, nutritionists, certified diabetes educators, and more without the hassle of having to go into a doctor's office.
Wait. You mean a lazy bum like me can have appointments right from my computer? Sign me up.
That's right, Dobie. And this week, our listeners can use promo code JMT25 for 25% off their first visit.
Yeah, don't try to cheat and go to JMT26 because you're not going to get 26. It's 25. Go to www.diastronghealth.com. That's www.diastronghealth.com. Welcome back to the Just My Type podcast, In Between Your Ears. My name is Dobie Maxwell, type 2. She is Sami Parker, vivacious, effervescent, always in the know, type 1.
Wow, Dobie, thanks. And we have Miss Jess back with us again. Also, I call her Jess, but full name, sorry, Jessyka.
Oh, no, totally fine.
Okay, so we're going to do a little mini segment today. I want to switch this one up. This one's going to be known as Sugar Stats. So I'm going to read off some statistics. Just because I think it's interesting, I think listeners will also find it interesting. And it's actually stuff I didn't even really know. Like I knew how prevalent it was, but the numbers are kind of a little outrageous. It kind of overwhelms me, but bear with me. Okay, so first sugar stat. A total of 37.3 million people have diabetes, and that's only in the US. And so basically they're saying including the US and the whole entire world, it is supposed to be approximately around 900 million.
What if we could get a penny from each of them?
Yeah, we'd be rich.
We could buy lunch for all of Rancho Cucamonga. We could buy Rancho Cucamonga.
Yeah, you could buy
Yeah,
it.
that is true. You could buy it. Okay, diagnosed. There's 28.7 million people that are diagnosed, and the undiagnosed are 8.5 million people, and those two are just in the US. And then about 7% of pregnant women develop gestational diabetes. I thought that one was pretty wild. Because I think like nobody really hears about that. It's not talked about that often, which hopefully we'll have a future episode on. But gestational diabetes is definitely something that needs to be looked at more, I think, and be known to people so they're not confused.
A lot of girls who do gestational diet turn into type 1. So I've learned that.
Yeah, which is so crazy to me.
Yeah.
It's like the only one that you can say is like triggering or triggers diabetes, because they don't really have a cause, but yeah, gestational is.
Yep.
Okay, and then this is from the ADA in 2020, but 1.6 million Americans have type 1, and that includes 187,000 children and adolescents, which kind of surprised me. So basically, it's like, obviously that makes sense because let's be honest, your adult years are way more than your child and adolescent years, but that's still pretty crazy to think because I think we don't always think of adolescents as like infants and babies. So imagining a little 3-year-old with a, little like patch or CGM on their arm or pump, my heart like melts.
Yeah.
It makes me so sad. But those are just some statistics I'd found. And all of them except for the last one were found on the CDC. But yeah, it's pretty crazy to me because I think when you first get it, you feel so alone. And I'm sure you guys all can agree with this. And then it's like you find a community and like, I got to meet you, Jess, and then Dobie. And this was like, it's just such a rewarding experience when you get to meet other people and like share your story and learn other people's stories because it's very informative and also relatable. So I just want to share those sugar stats with you guys. But do you have any others?
No, I love it. I was just going off of like the community pretty much of what you were saying. And, diabetes is it's the same, but it's so different for everybody. And that's why I reached out because it's like, it's just a good, warm feeling knowing that I'm not alone in the daily struggle of diabetes.
That's our whole idea for being here, Jess, is to create a community, exactly like you said, and to make it fun and humanity and talk about, people's son, Walker, and stories and stuff. So please help us spread the word, and we will help spread the word about you.
Walker's famous. I'm telling you.
We call him Tex for short, so,
Walker, Texas Ranger.
I like that. That's cute.
Yeah, that's an old person show, Sami, but Jess gets it.
Yeah. Hey, I do know that show. I have to give myself credit. I know that show.
I've heard of it.
We are concluding this episode of Just My Type podcast. It's been a treat. Sami, this was a fun one.
I know. I like having a guest. Add some spice up in here.
Yeah.
It does. Thank you, Jess, for coming on too. We seriously appreciate it. And we're so excited that you could be a part of this with us and also that people can learn from you and ask you questions too. And also go to your little small business, Anti-Insulin Insulin Club.
Thank you guys. It really been a Great pleasure having me. Hopefully I'll come back if I wasn't too rambly, but I was super excited to do this today. So thank you very much.
You were
No, beautiful. Definitely have you back.
So, Jess, what is the question of the pod?
Okay, so what do you do with your diabetes devices, your insulin pump, your GCNs during summer? So this goes for guys and girls. Do you put them in the same place so you don't get tan lines everywhere, or do you just go no devices all summer? Do you go, device free? So
That's a good one. Okay, so answer that question of the pod on our social media, on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. We are Just My Type Pod _, and on Facebook, Just My Type Pod, and you can use our hashtag Just My Type Pod as well. So please answer the question of the pod that Jess had just said. Again, that's basically where do you put your pump, CGM, all those different devices, and do you move them from different spots to not get tan lines?
it's a real struggle, let me tell you.
This is the end of this episode. We need a bow on the package and a cherry on the sundae. Sami?
C'est la vie, baby.
This is the Just My Type podcast.